Rev up your engine! Okay, they say, don't look a gift horse in the mouth. Well, this guy didn't. His old college roommate gave him this car because he crashed his Yaris in an ice and snowstorm, and he got this for nothing. So the Yaris that got destroyed in a snow and ice storm had the same exact engine as the Scion. It's a 1.5 liter variable valve timing engine. They're small, they're not outrageously powerful, but they can last virtually forever if you change the oil. It's the Scions that had those 2.4 bigger four-cylinder engine, the 2.4 liter, that were the ones that burnt oil like mad. If you're looking at one of those, my advice is, I probably wouldn't look at it in the first place, but it's one of those, just do this. Just walk to the back, stick your finger in the tailpipe, and if it's all black and oily, this isn't at all, but if it's black and oily, it's an oil burner and don't buy it. As you can see, everything's small, the engine's small, there's a lot of working room, but then again, it's a Toyota, you don't have to work on it much now. He did have to get the throttle changed out here, but I can guarantee you that most of that probably has to do with Chicago winters versus Toyota quality, because everything up there rusts and corrodes, and you gotta just replace crap. But in that vein, if you look around, it's not rotted. That's ice, that's not rust. That's ice. And if we look way under, you can see the frame's still all solid. The unibody construction is still all solid. The doors aren't rotten, though it's still solid. That just goes to show that Toyota indeed knows how to manufacture these things with the anti-rust capability. Because when I lived up north, when I lived in Illinois, let me tell you, my Ford rotted away. Pieces were falling off of it. Ford did not know how to make cars that didn't rust. They still don't to some extent, but way back on these, Toyota was still making them, so they didn't rust. They would coat it with enough zinc coating. Heck, my old Celica over there, it's not rusted and it's a 94. They just knew how to make them so they didn't rot away. Now granted, this has 108 horsepower, and the owner just said, well, it was 2 more than his Yaris with the same basic engine, but it is hooked up to an automatic transmission. It is not a race car by any stretch of the imagination. And you can see it likes idling up and down a little because it's getting old, you know. I kind of idle up and down when I'm warming up too, you know. It still goes down the road, gets phenomenal gas mileage, and if you're into things that are square, or I should say rectangular and boxy, this is the type of vehicle you want. They don't get much more rectangular than this thing. He calls it a toaster on wheels, and it is. Now, he didn't buy this thing because of the way it looked. He didn't even buy it. His roommate gave it to him. So he got it for nothing. So don't look a gift horse in the mouth that's running as good as this thing is, even though it's got some mileage. We'll scan it and see what kind of shape it's in. Now, we were working up the scan tool, and I noticed he's like my old college days. The horns always broke on my cars, too. So he put a little button he bought on Amazon for the horn instead of taking all this apart. That's got kind of a cool setup. Little speedometer in the middle, kind of like a mini, you know. Look, the tachometer still works. Sure, there's a hole in the muffler. 2005. Hey, scan tool scanning it fine. And while it's set up, you can see he's got a lot of room in this thing. Look, he's been living out of this thing. It's all ready to do a scan, and here we go. It's an old car, so we'll do a smart scan. You notice it doesn't do all the gigantic things it does in a modern car because it's an old car. The only thing green is the immobilizer. There are minor problems, so we'll start with the ABS system. Speed sensor doesn't work, open an ABS solenoid, and the control system. You don't expect ABS to work on this old car, so, you know, can pretty much forget that. But for now, what the heck, we'll turn them off. It says the switches for the right-hand seat belts aren't working. It's just minor crap that's wrong with the car. He's the only one sitting in it anyway. We'll look at the data stream. Here we go. While it's doing it, we'll check out the mileage. 229,720 miles. It's almost made it to the moon, from the Earth to the moon. We're still getting 78 points of data, so let's start looking at it. Okay, he has the transmission fluid temperature. And we can see misfire counts, 0. It's an old car, but it's not misfiring. Sensor's good, 1.620, 1.5 liter engine, that's what you expect. And the oxygen sensor. The fuel trim, look, it's subtracting a tiny amount. Sometimes it's 2.3, 3.9. It goes up and down because it's almost perfect there. It's not all that bad for an old car. You see the total fuel trim is 1.4. It's adding 1.4 for. It's running just slightly lean. That's nothing for an old car like this. And it may be old, but it does have variable valve timing. So we'll take it for a spin. Now, he did have to replace the compressor and the condenser in the front because he doesn't like Chicago's heat in the summer. I don't blame him. It gets hot. Things do eventually wear out, and he replaced them, and the AC works perfectly fine now. So here we go. No backup camera, but he added one on himself. Look, it's not working because there's ice on it. You take the ice off, you'll see it. He decided to add a backup camera. It's not shaking at all. This thing idles like a dream. Noisy because the exhaust has got some holes in it, but being an XB, it's relatively up in the air. You're not sitting low. You got a good high up view of things. I do like the dash. It's like the mini speedometer. I kind of like it. It looks cool. And it's icy out now, so I'm not going to take this thing to any kind of extreme limits, but it corners perfectly fine. Still shifts like a dream. You didn't feel that shift. It's a smooth shift, and it's not a race car, but I mean, step on the gas. It does rev up pretty high to get going. It has to with that tiny engine. It beat the post office truck behind us. It's faster than a post office truck. Nobody's coming. We'll head to our little drag strip here. It's making it up the hill. I didn't have to push it yet. And come to a stop. Here we go. Full speed ahead. Well, pretty slow. You notice it shifted like a dream though. Made a lot of noise because there's a hole in the exhaust. Had to rev really high to get going, but the tranny's doing its job. It's an Econo box car. Well, it does look like a box. And you get rattles here and there, but 229,000 miles down the road, it's still rolling with the original engine, original transmission. It's still got the original struts and it's still rolling down the road. Hey, not bad for a vehicle that he got for nothing. Although I must say I could use heated side mirrors. The ice is frozen on this, and it didn't defrost driving to Tennessee from Chicago. It's too cold out. Same thing for the other side. The ice is still on there. I can't see behind me. And if you wanted, you could stop this exhaust noise by fixing the exhaust, but what the heck, it's a Chicago car. He doesn't care. So I guess with all that exhaust parts that have rotten and leaking off, this is now a race car Scion XB, a rare vehicle. Listen to that power. Probably less than 100 horsepower now, what's left, but hey, it still goes down the road. A free car, which you can't complain. But in terms of these Scions, you're gonna buy one, go for the ones that have the smaller engine. These old engines didn't burn oil, can run forever. The 2.4 liter engines, I'd stay away from. They have too much of history of problems. I would only buy one if the person had a receipt from Toyota that either the engine was replaced or that they rebuilt and put new pistons in it, because that was a flaw. They went for more horsepower. Americans always want more horsepower, and in the case of the Scion, it was a mistake. It led to them eventually not making and selling them here anymore. So if you're looking for a boxy car, hey, get the smaller engine ones. I'd rather have a standard, but with the automatic, you're not going to over rev it. It'll probably last longer, and they're totally dependable automatic transmissions. They're Toyota Scions, and they've been around forever. Not really that much different than the transmission that's in both my Matrix and the Celica. They're all very similar designs, and they can run forever. So if you don't mind a little bit slow pace, and you want to get good gas mileage, hey, there's still a bunch of these things still rolling down the road. You're probably not going to get it for free, but they don't cost too much when they're this old with this kind of mileage on it. So if you don't care that much about the image of what you're driving, heck, go and buy one of these things. You're not going to impress anyone with it, except guys like me that know machines and think, hey, that was a pretty well-built machine. And it'll also keep gold diggers away from you. And here's some bonus questions and answers. Dad, 2LM2 says, I'm working on my daughter's car and I want to work on the front axle and I want an impact wrench, but I do not have an air compressor. The electric ones, the battery power ones are handy, but the corded ones seem to have more power and you never have to worry about the battery going bad. What do you think? The corded ones are so much better than they were when I was a young mechanic. They are relatively powerful, and understand a lot of it has to do with voltage, right? Even if you get a battery powered one with 36 volts, right? You plug it into the wall, a corded one, that's got 120 volts. It's a lot more potential energy. I mean, the Ingersoll Rand makes a great one if you want to spend some serious money, but truth be told, you go to Harbor Freight Tools or any of those discount tool places, if you buy their good electric impact wrench, you can get one that works quite good for around $100, 120 bucks. And they work quite well. You know, eventually they're going to wear out. They're not commercial, but you're doing it to work on your daughter's car and probably work on your own car. And one at their price range is good enough for what you need. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.